What if I told you that the face of God is not beyond us, but within us, waiting to be seen? Tonight we do not speak of religion as doctrine, but of God as the echo of our deepest self. Let us embark on a journey through psyche and time to rediscover the sacred image that lives in the unconscious of humanity. In my experience, the image of God is not an external deity, but a psychic cornerstone. It is the archetype of the self, the organizing center of the psyche that we all carry, consciously or unconsciously. In moments of inner illumination, one does not see God in the heavens, but within the depths of one's mind and soul. This image is no abstraction. It is a psychic reality, something we feel and know, even when words fail. It is both personal and impersonal, compassionate yet challenging. It emerges not from theology, but from the mystery of our own being, revealing itself in dreams, symbols, art. And perhaps here, through this moment of shared attention, time is no mere clockwork. In Aion we find a timelessness that inhabits every moment, a fusion of the eternal and the temporal. It suggests that each now is an opening, a door to the archetypal realms where the God image resides, not lost in the past, nor deferred to the future, but alive in the now of the Sioux. Then there are those uncanny moments, synchronicities, where inner and outer worlds align in meaning, not causality. These acausal events reveal how the psyche speaks through time, conjoining the divine image with our lived experience. They are whispers of eternity and of the self, unfolding in time's peculiar, mysterious language. The image that men call divine does not belong solely to the creeds and dogmas of the churches, nor to the metaphysical assertions of philosophy. It rises from a far older source, older even than recorded history. It is the psychic inheritance of humanity, pressed into the depths of the unconscious, and there it assumes a shape which is at once personal and universal. When we encounter this image, whether in dream or in vision, we are seized by a sense of authority that does not depend on our own will. It breaks upon us with the power of something given, something that commands reverence, and it fills the soul with the intuition of a greater wholeness. This figure, though it may wear the masks of many gods and goddesses, belongs to no single religion. It is the archetypal image of the self, the totality of the psyche that both contains and transcends the ego. It appears as light and shadow, as loving father and devouring mother, as redeemer and destroyer. Its forms are paradoxical because the self is paradoxical, embracing opposites that cannot be reconciled on the level of rational thought. When the unconscious projects this figure outward, we experience it as deity. When we draw it inward, it becomes the guiding center of our own individuation. The soul's encounter with this image is never neutral. It may uplift with a sense of profound meaning, or it may overwhelm with fear and trembling. We see this reflected in the history of religions, where the divine is always depicted with a double aspect, merciful and wrathful, radiant and dark. The same ambivalence appears in the psyche of the individual. To experience the God image is to be drawn beyond the limits of one's ordinary self, to be confronted with the vastness of being, and at the same time to be reminded of one's own smallness. One cannot simply dismiss this image as illusion or superstition, for it belongs to the very structure of the human mind. Attempts to eradicate it only lead to its return in distorted and often destructive forms. The modern world, having stripped away many of its traditional symbols, is still haunted by the need for images of totality, whether they appear in ideology, science, or political savior figures. This psychic fact cannot be denied. Humanity is compelled to create and to live with images of the divine, because these images represent the hidden wholeness toward which the psyche strives. To recognize the God image as an archetype of the self is not to reduce it, but to understand its place in the economy of the psyche. It is a symbol of the unity that transcends the fragmentation of consciousness. It points toward the reconciliation of opposites within the soul, when the ego dares to face this figure not as something foreign, but as a mirror of its own deepest ground. Then the process of individuation begins in earnest. In such moments the human being stands at the threshold of mystery, sensing that within the depths of the psyche speaks not merely a fragment, but the whole. When we speak of God, we enter a territory where words falter and definitions collapse, for here we touch not the constructs of logic, but the immediacy of experience. God is not for me a philosophical postulate, nor an abstract metaphysical principle. Rather, God appears as a psychic fact, an event within the soul that compels recognition. The reality of such an experience cannot be denied by dismissing it as illusion, for its impact on the individual is undeniable. To encounter this reality is to feel seized, confronted by a presence that exceeds the ego's capacity to contain or explain it. This presence reveals itself in symbols, in dreams, in the numinous atmosphere that surrounds extraordinary moments of life. One may encounter it in the vast silence of nature, in the terror of catastrophe, in the radiance of beauty, or in the unaccountable coincidence that alters the course of one's destiny. These experiences share a common quality. They evoke awe, fear, and reverence. They overwhelm rational categories and demand a response of the whole person. Such phenomena cannot be dismissed simply because they do not conform to metaphysical systems. They belong to the inner life, and it is there that they are real. The psyche, through its depths, produces images that appear autonomous, greater than the individual will. They intrude upon consciousness with authority. Among these, the God image stands supreme, as it embodies the totality of the self. It is not created by human imagination in the trivial sense of invention. Rather, it arises spontaneously, as though from an inexhaustible source. Its symbols are ancient, recurring across cultures and epochs, speaking in myth and ritual, and still appearing in the modern dream. Such persistence suggests that we are not dealing with fantasy, but with the very foundations of psychic reality. The modern mind is tempted to reject these experiences as projections or hallucinations, but such rejection does not dissolve them. Instead, it drives them into shadow, where they re-emerge in distorted forms, collective hysteria, blind ideologies, or destructive obsessions. When the God image is denied, it does not vanish, it takes possession in another guise. This fact reveals that the psyche insists on its realities, regardless of whether the intellect grants them validity. What matters then is not whether one believes in God as an external being, but whether one acknowledges the reality of the experience within. To do so is to recognize that the psyche itself produces contents that transcend the individual, that speak with the voice of universality. These are not metaphysical assertions about what exists beyond the world. They are descriptions of what takes place in the soul. And what takes place there can transform life. Thus God, as psychic reality, is neither an object of dogma nor an invention of reason, but a symbol of the deepest ground of being. It is the voice of the self calling to consciousness, demanding recognition, and offering the possibility of wholeness. To encounter this voice is to confront both the mystery of existence and the mystery of one's own soul. Time, as we ordinarily conceive it, is measured by the ticking of the clock, the rising and setting of the sun, the passing of days and years. It is a sequence, a linear order in which events succeed one another. Yet this human construction does not exhaust the mystery. Beneath the familiar rhythm lies another dimension, one that reveals itself not in chronology, but in the depths of experience. There we encounter the paradox of time and eternity, embodied in an ancient image that speaks to the psyche in ways logic cannot fully grasp. This image is that of Aion, who represents both the flow of time and the timeless. In him the opposites unite. He is depicted encircled by the serpent that devours its own tail, a symbol of endless return, of cycles without beginning or end. Within this figure we perceive time not as a straight line, but as a circle, an eternal recurrence in which past and future fold into the present. The psyche recognizes this circularity, for it too moves in patterns that repeat, motifs that reappear in dream and destiny. In such a vision, eternity is not the negation of time, but its depth. Each moment contains within itself the whole of time, as if eternity were pressing itself into the instant. One senses this in those rare experiences when time seems to stop, when an event carries the quality of the eternal now. These moments are not captured by the clock. They belong to the realm of the archetype. They disclose the paradox that time is both transient and enduring, fleeting and everlasting. Aion, as an image, is more than mythological ornament. It expresses the psyche's attempt to reconcile the irreconcilable, the fact that we live within the inexorable flow of time, yet harbor within us the intuition of timelessness. The ego measures life by its limited span, but the deeper psyche feels itself connected to something beyond birth and death. In this tension lies the paradox. Man is a temporal creature, yet he carries an image of eternity within his soul. This paradox shapes our relationship to meaning. If existence were only linear time, it would be consumed by impermanence, ending in nothingness. If it were only eternity, it would be static and lifeless. The archetype unites the two, showing that the eternal becomes real only through temporal life, and temporal life finds its meaning only in relation to eternity. Thus the cycle of Aion is not a denial of mortality, but its transfiguration, a reminder that every ending belongs to a greater rhythm. To contemplate this archetype is to glimpse the mystery of being itself. We are held in the circle of time, yet touched by the intimation of the eternal. This dual experience cannot be resolved by reason alone, for it is the very nature of the psyche to live within paradox. In acknowledging this, we do not escape time, but we begin to live it differently, aware that each moment is not only passing, but also eternal. There are moments in life when the chain of cause and effect seems inadequate to account for what takes place. An inner event coincides with an outer one in such a way that the individual is struck with wonder, even awe, at their correspondence. It is not mere accident that one dreams of a symbol at night, and then encounters it the next day in reality. Nor is it chance when an intense inner state is mirrored by a sudden happening in the world. These experiences point to another order of time, one that is not bound to linear causality but to meaning. In these instances, time does not unfold like the ticking of a clock, but reveals itself as a tapestry woven from both inner and outer threads. What occurs in the psyche and what occurs in the world intersect, not because one causes the other, but because both arise from a deeper ground of order. Such moments are charged with numinosity. They break through the veil of the ordinary and confront us with a sense of connection to something larger than ourselves. We recognize them instantly, for they carry the undeniable feeling of significance. The psyche does not live only in the sequence of seconds and minutes. It also inhabits a timeless realm where meaning organizes experience according to patterns invisible to the rational mind. What appears to us as coincidence is in fact an expression of this underlying pattern. When two events coincide in a way that reveals an inner truth, they open a window into the unity of psyche and world. They show us that what is within and what is without are not utterly separate, but can be joined in moments of revelation. Such occurrences remind us that the human being is not merely a spectator of time, but a participant in its mystery. The unconscious speaks through symbols, dreams, and images, and at certain times the outer world seems to echo this language. To ignore this is to miss an essential aspect of psychological life. To attend to it is to recognize that our existence is embedded in a cosmos that is not indifferent, but alive with meaning. Yet these experiences are not to be manufactured at will. They come as gifts, as intrusions of another order into the everyday. They cannot be explained away as chance without losing their essence, nor can they be systematized into a rigid law without distorting their spontaneity. They belong to the unpredictable movement of the soul in relation to the world, revealing the hidden correspondences that sustain the dialogue between inner and outer reality. In such moments, time itself feels transformed. It is no longer a neutral container in which events unfold, but a living medium through which the psyche encounters the mystery of its own depth. Here time becomes meaningful, not because it measures duration, but because it carries the imprint of significance. And when we are touched by this, we recognize that our lives are not only bound to chronology, but also illuminated by the timeless play of meaning. So I invite you, open your eyes to the sacred Sill, wet not in the clouds, but in the deep valleys of your mind. Watch for those meaningful coincidences that feel uncanny, not accidental. Listen for the voice of the self that seeks recognition. In such recognition, the image of God shines forth, and time itself becomes sacred, not merely measured. Let this be our journey inward through psyche, through time, toward wholeness. For in that moment of insight, when you catch sight of that inner visage, you are no longer merely a creature within time. You become time's companion, and the divine image within you becomes more than symbol. It becomes you.